Hi, this is Mary Beth Kosmeski with Red Zone Marketing, and we are talking today about LinkedIn prospecting. This is a hot topic because a lot of people, especially financial advisors, think that really LinkedIn doesn't necessarily work in terms of bringing in new business. And if it does work, then show me how it works. And so today we're going to show you how it works because there actually is some success formulas for using LinkedIn to really generate some new business. And so today I have with me Charlie McDervin, and Charlie Van Derven. Charlie, how could I get your name wrong? We were just talking. I have with me Charlie Van Derven because Charlie is an expert in this. So although I do a lot of marketing and talk about marketing strategies for financial advisors and just in general, Charlie focuses specifically on LinkedIn strategies, social media strategies, and he's got the success track record to prove it. So Charlie's joining me today, and we're doing this webinar together. So welcome, Charlie.
Thank you, Mary Beth. Pleasure to be here.
So we're going to talk today about 7 key strategies to really making LinkedIn actually work for you. And one of the things that we sort of have chosen LinkedIn as a place that's a really good prospecting place because of some of the statistics that you see in front of you right now. And Charlie, do you want to talk to some of these and the reason that we're really focusing in on LinkedIn?
Yeah, and all of them matter, right? The one that I like the most, and of course you got to take it with a little bit of grain of salt because it is a LinkedIn stat, it comes from them, is that 80% of leads sourced for B2B is on LinkedIn. Now, for financial advisors, B2B, it still includes retail clients as well, right? So if you're prospecting entrepreneurs, if you're prospecting business owners, if you're prospecting executives in any way, and of course, B2B, those plan sponsors out there for all of you who do 401ks, that's an awesome target as well. So the stat that stands out the most here is that 80% of leads sourced online for B2B and business to retail it come directly from LinkedIn. So reality is if you're not closing business because of LinkedIn, it's really just because the strategies you're using are not effective for doing that because there's lots of business to be had there.
Right. And the other thing, why LinkedIn? Why aren't we talking about Facebook or Twitter? And we certainly could talk about Facebook and Twitter, but the reality is that because of the statistics you just saw, most of, if you're looking to target executives and business owners and people that have not retired yet, this is a really good place. And I get asked all the time, well, should I be on Facebook? Should I be on these other places? And the answer is it could be, but I always answer the question, where are your prospects? Yeah. And we'll talk a little bit about what prospects really are on LinkedIn and which are not on LinkedIn. But if you think Facebook is a great place, ask your clients and prospects, are you on Facebook? Are you there on a regular basis? Because if they say yes, it's a good place for you to be. But we know for sure that LinkedIn is a good place to be and a very active space, so good for prospecting. So I told you we're going to talk about 7 key strategies today. The first one is if you want to get and focus on making LinkedIn profitable side of your business development, the first thing that you have to do, and this is almost kind of an obvious thing, but we have to talk about it because there are still some mistakes being made here, is really focusing on branding your profile. I know, Charlie, when you work with financial advisors, one of the first things you do is let's make sure your profile is good. And so one of the things that we see a lot of times is what you might see on the screen right now, which is a bad profile. There's no picture, there's no real information, it doesn't tell your story, there's no summary section, and it really doesn't give you the brand that you want. You want to make sure that if you're going to use LinkedIn as a prospecting source, that your profile is really great. So what do you want to make sure you've got there? Obviously, you want to have a good picture. You want to have all the things that are important in terms of your your titles, and just all these headline, the things that are the most obvious that are going to just show you well. Because if you don't have these things, it kind of looks like maybe you're not active in the space, maybe you've already retired, maybe who knows. But we want to just make sure that this is a really good presence for you. And the second thing that we always make sure that financial advisors have is that summary section. So I like to say, using the Simon Sinek ideas, why? Give them your why. Don't tell them you've been in the business for 20 years and you manage like hundreds of millions of dollars. I mean, that's good. It's good credibility, but that's what everybody says. So what are you saying that's sharing about you? How are you connecting to that target market that you may want to connect to on LinkedIn? Do you have that catchy? And so one of the things in the one that you see on the screen here is a financial advisor. And I asked him, why are you in this business? And he gave me the answer. And the answer was something that happened in his childhood. And he didn't really want to put it on his LinkedIn profile because he felt like that was something that really didn't make him a better financial advisor. But what it made him was someone who was really actually an authentic person who wasn't going to judge, who has a real story to tell and a real reason that he's in this business, not because he's trying to sell people stuff, but because he's got a passion for helping people. And telling that story really helps people to get to know you. But the key really, and I'm going to turn it to Charlie, because you want to make sure you're communicating with your target. So Charlie, do you want to talk about some of the things that you suggest that advisors do in terms of their profile, and also who are good targets on LinkedIn? For instance, who are not good targets on LinkedIn?
That might be the better way to approach it. Let me start with the first part of that, and that is the profile, Mary Beth. When we work with an advisor, we really focus on 5 different branding elements on the profile. The first of which is that cover photo. On the generic one that you posted, it was that blue portion at the top. That's a default from LinkedIn. Now, depending on who the advisor is, where they're located, who they're focused on, we might make different suggestions. But that's another opportunity for branding, or an opportunity to, if your business is very geographical. If you put up a photo of a landmark in the community in which you work, these are things that tie you back to the community. Telling that story. I love what you say about the summary, right, and telling the why. I think too often we want to keep business information out there and shy away from who we are personally. If you look at my cover photo, it's actually a picture of a paddleboarder, because that's something I do, and is an opportunity to kind of relate to who I am as an individual as well. So there's some options for the cover photo. For the headshot, we really want to focus on a couple of things, right? Number one, that's a very small format, right? So you've got to make sure that headshot zoomed in close enough so that people can see who you are. And then also, I see too many kind of stone-faced headshots, and I don't really get what that's about. But if you implement on some of the strategies that we talked about today, you're going to drive a lot of people to your profile to do some diligence. And looking approachable, right? Having a smile on your face, that's an important piece of the headshot. So that sounds pretty simple, but it's important, right? We want people to want to talk to you. The summary, what you said was great. You got 2,000 characters. I recommend writing it in first person, so it feels more of an introduction than it would a bio, which is great for the website. Let's see, the headline, which is where your title typically is. We coach advisors to write. You got 140 characters. We coach advisors to write a quick little value proposition, basically who it is that you do business with and the value that you provide them. And then finally, we focus on the network, right? Building the right network, and that boils down to really 4 categories of people. For the quality side of that network is connect with as many clients as you can find, as many prospects, and I don't care if they're new prospects or someone you haven't spoken to in 2 or 3 years. Connect with as many centers of influence, those professional referral resources that you have. And then the 4th group I call other advocates. And these are people in your life that may never be a client. They don't fit that profile, but you've got a good, long, trusted relationship with them. And you never know who they might know that being connected to them might expose you to. One other comment about that profile. We've heard for years and years, Google yourself, see what's out there when you Google yourself. LinkedIn, by virtue of the type of website it is very, very searchable by Google. So oftentimes if you Google your name or your company, your LinkedIn profile is going to show up towards the top of the first page, right? So it's a great place where people are doing their diligence, whether it's because of Google or because of your activity on LinkedIn. You want to have your best foot forward in that respect. Now, the second part of your question was who not to target, right?
Right.
So we talked about a lot of great targets: executives, entrepreneurs, HR, controllers, CFOs, business owners. I'll tell you the two that I've found that are not good targets are, number one, retirees, right? So they really don't have a reason to be on this platform anymore. So if your target market is retirees, probably not the right platform for you. Now, here's another that I thought would be good when we tested it a little bit, but it turned out not to be a great target, and that's physicians. So I know a lot of advisors that focus on working with doctors, and when family practice was a big part of that industry, LinkedIn would have been a better target because doctors would have to attract people to their family practice or private practice. Now, so much of that industry is built around these major medical centers where they really don't have to attract people for their business. The hospital's doing that for them. So it turned out that they were not a real active bunch. There's a lot of profiles out there, but they're not a very active, very active target. But really outside of that, even blue collar, even union work, we've been able to find, have some good success even with targeting blue collar outside of those white collar kind of executive titles we talked about earlier.
Excellent. Okay, so let's move on to number 2, which is sharing thought leadership. And this is the part where advisors start to get sometimes a little squirmish, like, oh my gosh, what am I going to post? Who's going to write this stuff? What am I going to send out? What's actually going to be good and relevant? And I think that's the relevant part is the part that's important. And there's different kinds of content. You've got, you can send things out that are financial related, things about the market or things like that. You can send out things that are personal or, those kinds of content. And then there's lifestyle content. And I know that the 3 of them kind of need to be mixed in. When you're sending out content, you want to pull from different places. And Charlie, do you want to talk a little bit about what you guys suggest on how to do this and why, for instance, lifestyle content is really important?
Yeah, absolutely. So, we really talk about 3 types of content, and the first of that is your professional content, right? Industry-related content about planning, or the stuff for a lot of you that are on this webinar would be in that pre-approved library that your firm provides, if in fact they have one. Here's the reality of that type of content. When you send out an article about planning, to stick with that theme, you're not going to get a lot of interaction. Okay. And so I know a lot of advisors, I've spoken to a lot of advisors that get discouraged by that. Well, I post an article and I get 2 likes and they're my family. And I go, yeah, I know, but that doesn't minimize the importance of that type of content, right? So while you don't get a lot of interaction, that type of content is important for positioning you correctly. So make sure that you're sharing financial and industry-related content consistently, but don't expect a lot of interaction. The second type is really lifestyle, Mary Beth, as you spoke to. And we've done some blogs over the years that, just on the surface, it doesn't seem like they'd get a lot of interaction, but because of the topic that they're based on, they have. So we did one, and this is fun to talk about. We did one several years ago. The Los Angeles Clippers were purchased by, Steve Ballmer from Microsoft. And I think it's called the Pagula family, bought the Buffalo Bills about the same time. Here's the funniest thing. We were working with an ultra high net worth advisor. And so we wrote a blog and, loosely titled something like, professional sports franchise billionaires play toy, our sound investment strategy. And, I kind of thought it was a bad idea at the time, but we published it and it was crazy because it only applies to like 0.000001% of the population, right? But because it was about sports, it went off. I mean, it got shared so many times. The second good example I can think of is, and this goes back a few years again, we wrote a blog comparing and contrasting the 5-year ownership of a BMW 7 Series versus the high-end Lexus sedan. Now that's a lot more. That's practical information for a lot more people. And spoiler alert, it costs you over 5 years about 80 grand more to own the BMW. If memory serves me on what that number was. But again, because it was about cars and that was a point of interest for a lot of people, it was a really well received article. So that's the second kind. Think in terms of lifestyle as opposed to industry. That's going to get more interaction. And then third is, you really want to, we call it personal professional. I don't think I need to trademark that, as it's not very elegant. But it's so it might be a bad title for that type of content. I made it up, but it's really about showcasing you as an individual in a professional setting, right? So I don't want to turn this into Facebook per se. I don't want to see pictures of your eggs in the morning and things like that. But if you do an event, take some photos, post that. If you do a retreat, if something's going on in office, if you've got an opportunity to showcase you and or your staff, do that with some photos. That's the type of content that, number one, gets the best interaction. And number two, actually builds more trust because now people get to know you to some degree as well.
Right. Yeah, exactly. And so I think that, this might beg the question, well, where do I get this content from? And like you said, some of the financial content and even some of the lifestyle content you can get from your pre-approved content that you might already have through your broker dealer or your whomever it is. But then you might have somebody on your team write something, or you might hire someone to do some of the writing, like Charlie's firm, or we do the same thing. So yeah, but that's, there's ways to get this content. You need the strategy first.
Yeah. But
then when you think about, as you've got this idea for doing content, the key really is to figure out, okay, well, what's going to be most compelling to my target audience? Not to me, but to my target audience. And one of the best ways to do that is to see what other thought leaders are doing. How are they, if something's getting a lot of shares and likes, what are they actually doing? And maybe we can learn from that is one of the things that we have found. Pay attention to what other people are doing in the space. And, when you're thinking about connecting and communicating with people, you also want to make sure that you've got some pre-approved messages of your own. And we'll talk about that a little bit more when we talk about the strategy of reaching out, finding new content or contacts, connecting with them, and then actually starting to communicate with them, which is where the downfall is with most LinkedIn prospecting strategies, is because, you just don't have the right, what do I say after I connect with them? Do I make a sales pitch? And the answer is no. But what do I say? And so we'll talk about that a little bit further, but you got to make sure you've got your communication strategy down. And another thing is to have like a monthly nurture campaign, to have a theme every month of the kinds of things that you might send out. And again, we'll talk about that a little bit further as the strategy, but as it relates to thought leadership, those are some of the important things. Now, the third thing is that we'll talk about today is your current connections. So what do we have to know about that? Well, one of the things is, we've got to find, who are we already connected to? Are you connected to the right people? Are you connected to a bunch of other financial advisors? Do you need to sort of disconnect from some people? Who do you really want to be connected to? And Charlie, do you want to talk about that and then go into talking a little bit about the advantages of creating a LinkedIn group as well?
Yeah. And groups are interesting. Groups, we'll touch on that. But, for the in most cases, we recommend disconnecting from other advisors. And I say most cases because there are some exceptions to that. Obviously, if you're in a recruiting role, it's going to be required that you're connected to other advisors for for that role, professional role. I know a lot of advisors that that work together in some capacity. So if you got some partnerships or some collaborative projects, by all means, stay connected to those people. The reason you disconnect from other advisors is if they're in your first network and they have Sales Navigator, they can see everybody that you're connected to, of course, depending on your privacy settings. But so they can see your other connections and could draw some certain conclusions from that. and certainly we don't want anybody poaching your network. And then also when you're active on your news feed and and commenting and sharing content, they can see that type of interaction. Now, I don't have any extreme cases where somebody used LinkedIn to go poach clients from another advisor, so I really don't have anything to cite that. I just don't want to create the opening or opportunity for that type of thing to happen, right? So we do recommend disconnecting from other advisors. Groups you brought up, Mary Beth, and groups are interesting, right? So LinkedIn groups, in my opinion, were much stronger years ago, right? So there was a lot more, thought sharing within groups years ago. But that doesn't mean they're not important today, right? So there's still some thought sharing going on. What I see it is when we, going back a couple minutes, we were talking about, being an influencer, right? And influencing that network. So if you think about a LinkedIn group and kind of the psychology of purchasing decisions, right? When you connect with a new business owner in your community, and you're just another connection of theirs once you connect, one of the goals is to create a relationship there. And we'll get into that in a little more detail. We often will build a group for an advisor. Like, let's say, you live in St. Louis and you're prospecting business owners in your area. You could build a LinkedIn group that is, a thought exchange group for business owners in St. Louis. So when you connect with a new business owner, over time that group's going to grow. When you connect with a new business owner, one of your messages would be, "Hey, why don't you join my business owners in St. Louis group?" And when they go to look at that group, they see you've got, in time, 200, 250, 300 people in that group. That creates a lot of influence in their mind, right? It goes from you being an individual to you being a person that works with these other 300 business owners. And so psychologically, that gives them the impression that you're working with a large group of people and makes you more attractive as an alternative for them.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think it's finding those hooks that are really important. Now, LinkedIn Sales Navigator, this is really the key to the strategy of making LinkedIn work for you. And LinkedIn Sales Navigator is one of the paid versions of the professional. They've got different options that you can get, but Sales Navigator is one of the things through LinkedIn that you can get. And there's a lot of advantages to do that. But one of the things, and I think, Charlie, you're going to go online and kind of show us around in Sales Navigator a little bit to see what you can do there. I don't know if this is the right time to do that, but talk a little bit about why Sales Navigator is kind of the key to making LinkedIn work for you.
Yeah, and I gotta qualify this first, Mary Beth. First up, I'm going to say that Sales Navigator, I'm without a question, is the best sales tool I've used in a 25-year career. Now, the qualifier is this: I do not get paid by LinkedIn. Okay.
Right. Nope, you don't.
You don't either, right?
No.
As far as I know. So when I say, Sales Navigator, if you pay monthly, is a $79 premium upgrade. Don't tell LinkedIn I would probably pay double, right? I mean, it is really that good, and it's responsible for about 65-70% of our business growth. And we get new opportunities out of it every single day. And what I'm going to share is 3 routines that I use and that we coach advisors all the time to use. And that, these routines, if you implement them, they're going to have an impact on not only your client communication, but your business development as well. But yeah, Sales Navigator is awesome. I mean, it really, it allows you to do a much deeper searches than the free version. It gives you unlimited search capability, whereas if you try to search in the free version, you're going to find out that if it looks like you're using that for commercial purposes at all, they're going to shut down your search capability. For I think it's for 30 days for a given time. So if you're really going to use this for prospecting, Sales Navigator is a must, and it's awesome. So. But yeah, I mean, I can, Mary Beth, I could jump in now if it seems like the right time. I'll jump in and we'll just do a little bit of live, which always is a little bit scary to me. But we'll let me share my screen here.
Yeah, because I think that's a good way for people to kind of see what you actually, inside of it, what's actually happening in LinkedIn Sales Navigator. Because then once we get to okay, so what do you do with LinkedIn Sales Navigator? How do you use this on a regular basis? It's helpful to see kind of how you are using it and the dashboard and all of those kinds of things, Charlie, and how you advise advisors to use this as well.
Yeah, exactly. And I'll give you a couple of high points for getting it set up, and then we'll dive right into those routines. Limited time, and I'll tell, we're going to move pretty quickly, Mary Beth, but I know one of the things that we're going to offer at the end of our webinar is to spend time with me or one of my colleagues to dive more into your personal situation so we can tailor some of these suggestions to each individual practice as opposed to just a general conversation.
Right.
So can you see my screen okay?
Yes.
Okay, awesome. So we're on the free version of LinkedIn here. Let me jump into Sales Navigator. Incidentally, if you want to upgrade, your upgrade capability would be under this little 9 grid work here at the top. I'll shut down these messages for now. So this is Sales Navigator, and it looks pretty similar. We'll talk about the differences in a moment. The first thing, when you sign up for Sales Navigator, the first thing you're going to tell LinkedIn is your sales preferences. This allows them to know who it is that you want to talk to, right? And I should say that I typically ask every advisor that I interact with is, what's the most difficult aspect of growing your business? Some of them, a more mature practice, they might say, resources. But 8 or 9 times out of 10, the answer I get is the ability to talk to more people consistently. LinkedIn Sales Navigator is designed to help you do specifically that. Just open up new conversations with your target audience, okay? So now we prospect from coast to coast and soon Canada as well. So we just branched into Ontario here recently. So that's exciting development on this side. So choose the geographic area, the type of people that you want to talk to, the industries if you have one, seniority level, company size. And what you're telling LinkedIn is these are the types of people that I want to sell to, right? Once you set that, the next step is to go under lists and then my network. And that's going to import every person you're connected to on LinkedIn. I'm sure some of you on the call will recognize the guy who's first on my list here, Bill Good Marketing, been in our industry for a while. Mary Beth, that a familiar guy for you?
Yeah, absolutely.
I would imagine. So rarely I hear somebody say, no, I don't know who Bill Good is.
Right. No, I think that's pretty impossible in this industry.
Exactly. That's pretty rare. Yeah. So Amy, again, an influencer in the industry. Russell, not so much. He's a connection of mine, but he really doesn't service our industry at all. So the people in the industry that I want to talk to, I've saved them as a lead. And I know that I've saved Bill as a lead by virtue of the fact that this button over here says message, okay? Amy's the same. I know that I have not saved Russell as a lead by virtue of the fact that this button gives me the option to save him as a lead, right? So that's the first step, is go through your network. We've already talked about connecting with clients, prospects, COIs, and other advocates. Go through and save each of these people as a lead. And what you're telling LinkedIn when you save somebody as a lead is that this is somebody I want to talk to. That's it, okay? Now, once you've done that, I'm going to jump back into the free version of LinkedIn here for just a moment, and we're going to scroll through. And again, this is live, so it's not controlled whatsoever. Yeah. And I hope that doesn't bite me in any case here.
Right.
And I'm just going to scroll through the free. This is the news feed on the free version of we're logged in as me on my LinkedIn. So John Weeks is an advisor. He might be a prospect of mine, right? So that might be good content for me. The second one down is Copper, for whatever reason. I guess it's a CRM. Maybe we've been shopping CRMs internally. Copper is promoting. This is a paid ad for me. I fell into their net somehow. Ed Donahue's a connection of mine that I knew in a former life. Ed works for HP. This doesn't impact me whatsoever. Here's an advisor at Morgan Stanley. I can't do business with wirehouse advisors, right? We work with independent advisors. So this one doesn't actually do me a whole lot of good either. You have
worked with wirehouse advisors. It's just not.
Oh, goodness, yes. We do a lot of coaching for wirehouse advisors, but the strategies we run with the more stringent compliance, we coach advisors on those strategies. One of the things that is required for us to help advisors, Mary Beth, is we log in as them on LinkedIn, right? And so that becomes a sticky point with some of the wirehouses. But we do coach on the 3 strategies that we're going to talk to.
Yep.
So, but my point in showing you this content is on the free version of LinkedIn, it's really kind of a hodgepodge of content, right? So it's hit and miss whether it would be useful content to me. It's LinkedIn trying to serve up content that is going to bring me back to look at it again, right? Because they monetize in a couple of ways. Number 1 is premium services. Number 2 is selling advertising. If I don't return to LinkedIn, and if everybody else on this call does not return to LinkedIn often, they sell less advertising, right? So they want to give me a good user experience, so I come back often. Frankly, I don't think they're very good at it with the homepage of LinkedIn, right? The free version. By contrast of that, when I go to the homepage on Sales Navigator, I get content from 3 types of people, right? James Baskey, financial advisor at Sickle Hunter. This is a gentleman that I've saved as a lead. That's why he shows up here. This message button here is giving me the opportunity to start a conversation with James right from this article. Right? Let me scroll through a little bit more here. Sarah is.
And what would you say? What would you say to him? Hey, I really like your article, or what would be something that you might message to him?
Yep, great question. And that goes into the daily routine. So we'll jump into that now, and that's the first of the 3 routines. Is first off, what I would do is you've got the option to comment, and you've got the option to send James a private message, right? I would avoid the comment because that's public, and rarely is James going to respond to that. I would send a message that says, hey, James, I really liked your 5 money management tips for small business owners, right? I like what you said about number 1 and number 3, but what about this in regards to number 4, right? I'm just making that stuff up. The point there is you want to point to the article and then ask James a question, right?
Yep.
Now, in your case, it's not going to be other advisors, right? It's going to be your business owners and executives and other people that you're prospecting. Clients could be in there, and this is a great way to communicate with clients outside of the review meeting. Your COIs, again, a great touch point for COIs. Ideally, a bunch of prospects, because it's a great way to rekindle old conversations or approach a prospect from a different direction.
Right.
So all we're doing is sending James a message and doing our best to create some banter, and then converting that, if this person is somebody that you want to do business with, converting that into a coffee or a lunch or that face-to-face. Right? So I want to move it from LinkedIn to face-to-face. Everybody's going to be a little bit different, but let's say, in a matter of a couple of weeks, right? Just create that back and forth. So the content that's going to show up on the homepage for LinkedIn is only content from people that you've told LinkedIn that you want to talk to. So it's going to be the leads that you've saved, people that LinkedIn are suggesting you might want to save as leads, and the companies that people that you've saved as leads work for. So that, that could create those banter opportunities also. Now, the daily routine, the first routine, is attempting to start 3 conversations a day in network. These are people you're already connected to in some regard, right? That if you do 3 a day, it literally takes you 5 minutes. I time block it during, sipping coffee and checking email in the morning. In 5 minutes, you're going to attempt to start 3 conversations a day. That's 15 a week. That's 60 a month. That's 720 conversations a year that you're going to attempt to start with a 5-minute daily investment. Now, not all of those are going to, they're not going to lead to, not all of those are going to lead to things, but more than 1 in 3 per day will. That's over 200 conversations you're going to start that are meaningful conversations in 2019 if you start this tomorrow with a 5-minute daily investment.
Yep.
Pretty awesome. And again, those might be just complementing client communication, might be nurturing that COI relationship, and a number of those are going to be prospects. So if we, Mary Beth, if it's okay, I'll jump into the second routine. I know we've got a slide dedicated to it.
Yeah, no, go ahead and jump right into it. We don't need to go back to the slide.
Yeah, rather than bouncing back and forth, I'll just jump right in. So, I do a little work with a company a coaching company out of North Carolina called the Oxley Institute, and that's a name that some of you will recognize. They're a research institute, and they've been researching two types of people in this industry for about 30 years, and that's top 5% of producers and affluent investors with more than $1 million investable assets. Now, probably each of you on this webinar has been told you need to ask for referrals. Well, here's the stats on that. 83% of those affluent people, when surveyed, said they don't like it when you ask them for a referral. Now, if you go out and you ask for 10 referrals, you're likely to get one, and you and your sales coach or your sales manager will be really excited about that. But what's unseen is, the damage that's done to a lot of those relationships. And frankly, if you've been around that conversation at all, for most people, it's a pretty awkward conversation. So don't worry about it, though. There's a flip side to this coin, right? 67% of those same people met their current advisor through a personal or a professional introduction. So quit asking for referrals and start asking for introductions. It may seem like we're splitting hairs a little bit. The main difference is instead of leaving it an open-ended question, now we can pinpoint people that we want to meet. And it's pretty easy to do that. I'm going to pull up the profile for a friend of mine, Nancy Kiefer. Nancy is a good friend of mine, also happens to be the president and CEO of our local Chamber of Commerce here in Daytona Beach. She's a well-connected professional, and for whatever reason, she likes me. Enough that we go grab happy hour usually once a month or so. If I click on Nancy's 500 connections, it's going to bring up every one of her connections. Now, one thing that I want to point out is this stat right here. 34 people changed jobs in the past 90 days. That's really significant for most advisors who the rollover is a good foot in the door, right? So the first thing I'll do with Nancy's profile or with her network is I'll sort it by geographic area. So this is in my backyard. And then because Nancy and I are both professionals in our community, we've got a bunch of shared connections. So I'll go to second degree connections. These are people that Nancy knows that I don't know. Right? So she knows 212 people in Daytona Beach that I am not already connected to. And there's that stat again. 8 of those people have changed jobs in the past 90 days. Now, I'm going to look through Nancy's network to find somebody that I want to meet. And I might as well go here to these 90, the recent job changes, because, frankly, this is low-hanging fruit and people that you can offer value to right away. So my call to Nancy is simply, first niceties, right? Nancy, how's it going? How's the family? How's the dog?
And this is a phone call. This is not I'm doing this through LinkedIn. You're picking up the phone.
Thank you for clarifying, Mary Beth. Yeah, pick up the phone. It's more personal, right? And it's a friend of ours, an advocate of ours. So that phone call, niceties, and then I'll say, hey, Nancy, listen, I'm giving you a call for a reason. I was on LinkedIn, and I saw that you're connected to Mary Jo Allen at Halifax Health. And I want to do a little digging. How well do you know Mary Jo? What kind of person is Mary Jo? I want to really qualify that Nancy knows Mary Jo well enough, right? Once I do, I'm going to say, what's a good way to meet Mary Jo? I noticed she recently moved to Halifax Health. And, if she's not thinking of her options with her 401k, I'd love to help her out with that, right? And Nancy's a friend of ours. She has our best interest in mind. She's likely to make that introduction, right? So what's a good way to meet Mary Jo? I'd love to buy you guys lunch next week, right? Now, the second routine is asking for 2 of those introductions every week.
Every week.
Every week. It takes about 30 minutes. It's not a difficult thing to do. You're going to be about 25% successful. So over the course of a year, you're going to ask for about 100 introductions. You're going to get introduced to 25 of those people face to face. And it's so much more powerful when the chamber president, my friend, introduces me to Mary Jo. The trust is transferred in that introduction, right? That takes so much of the rapport building happens right in that moment, right? So these are stronger prospects. If you can get that introduction, they become fairly strong prospects right away. But we don't stop there. Okay, we were still on the phone with Nancy, and we say, hey, Nancy, listen, I just signed up for LinkedIn Sales Navigator, And I got to tell you, before I saw how you and Mary Jo were connected, I didn't realize how awesome this tool was. And I'm going to be using it more. If I see anybody else in your network that might be of interest, do you mind if I ask a couple of questions about them? And Nancy, my friend, is going to say, no problem. Right? So next time I go to happy hour with Nancy, or next time you sit down with your advocate over a review meeting, have a couple of names ready. So you go from asking for those 100 introductions to getting permission to harvest more of their network. And that's a pretty significant thing.
Yep, absolutely.
So again, instead of jumping back into the PowerPoint and on the presentation, and Mary Beth, we can cruise through those slides, I'm sure, at this point. Why don't I just go right into the third routine? Sound all right?
Yeah, that sounds great.
All right. So the third routine is a cold prospecting routine. And while the first two routines are based on existing relationships, right? Starting conversations with people you know, asking for introductions from people you know, only you can do that. This next routine is based on strangers. At prospecting strangers that fit a certain professional profile. LinkedIn Sales Navigator makes it very simple. And because these are strangers, others can do this for you. And it's a service that we provide at Social Advisors that we'll talk a little bit more about in a bit. But it's also something that, say, an admin could do on your staff, right? So if you hover over the advanced button in the search bar, and then you click search for leads, LinkedIn Sales Navigator gives you all this criteria for sorting through professionals on LinkedIn. It's pretty awesome. So why don't I choose a city near you, Mary Beth? Go to Greater Chicago. And you can see that there are 3.5 million professional profiles on LinkedIn. Now, I'm not going to pretend all those people are active, right? In fact, maybe that number is 50 or 60% of those people are active. So that's really, let's say it's a pool of 1.7 million to be conservative. That's still a pretty darn good number. And if I hit search, it's going to give us access to all 3.5 million of those profiles. And then there's that number again. Almost 73,000 of these people changed jobs in the last 90 days. 149,000 of these people posted on LinkedIn in the past 30 days. That's a very active group. Both of these groups are very active, right? So we'd want to sort this. Let's just act as a 401k advisor for the moment. And we'll type in applicable titles. Human resources, we'll grab specialist. I'm just going to grab a few so we've got something to work with here. Director, executive, chief financial. But a controller might fit into that description. Maybe financial controller, and then business owners. And of course, you can sort owners out through the type of business they own, the size business they own, maybe a word like founder. Anyway, so this just gives us a little bit to work with. So just for those, those plan sponsor type titles, 64,000 people in Chicagoland fit that description. 1,900 of those people, now this might not apply as much because maybe they're not ripe for rollover, but 1,900 of those people changed jobs in the last 90 days. Almost 9,000 of those people have posted on LinkedIn in the last 30 days. This is a very active group of people. Now here's the third routine. When we coach this, we coach advisors to reach out to 200 of these people every single month. My recommendation is you either do 10 a day or you do 50 a week. Do not do 200 at a time, as LinkedIn might flag that as kind of spammy behavior, right? So reach out to 10 people a day or 50 a week and simply send them a connection invitation. If you reach out to 200 people, you will add somewhere between 55 and 60 new people to your network every single month. And the beauty of that is these are people that are people that you deemed you want to do business with, the type of person anyway that you want to do business with. And so if they join your network, you're going to influence them this year, next year, and for the next 15, 20 years, so long as they're still on LinkedIn and you're still on LinkedIn. Now,
what do you recommend for connecting with them? So you're going to reach out to 10 people a day to connect with them. what do you say? Do you say anything? What's the best practice?
A really great way to do this is to focus on commonality. So I just hit the back button. It'll take a second here, but focus on commonality, right? If I sort this by relationship, and I live in Florida, my network is national, but I've got even my second connections where I'm not specific to Chicago or to plan sponsors. I've got 2,000 second connections. So to every one of these people, I could say, oh, hey, I was looking at some of my connections profiles, and I came across your profile. I'd love to connect on LinkedIn. It looks like we've got some shared connections. That was pretty wordy. I might want to summarize that a little better. But
I get the point. Yeah.
Let's speak to something common, right? Stress a commonality. And with that, your percentages are going to go up, but I'll tell you, not by a lot, right? So we've done a lot of testing on this, different types of messaging. And if you send the generic one, which is, the default LinkedIn connection message, you're going to be 3 or 4% lower than if you customize it. Now, the reason I write that custom one about second degree connections is because that's something I could copy and paste to every one of these people, just to make it happen quickly, right? Instead of laboring over what I'm going to say to each and every person.
Right.
Now, of those 50 or 60 that connect with you, out of those 200 invites, the 50 or 60 that connect that accept it, we help advisors then write 2 follow-up messages, and they're designed to build a little rapport with the first message and then ask for a call. Mostly with this audience, it might be a little more direct. If it's just a retail audience that we're looking for, that would be more of a rapport building type call that we're asking for, an introduction. But out of that, you're going to get 3 calls, three sales calls, 4 sales calls a month, right in that ballpark. Now, when we do that for advisors, we reach out to, on average, of about 80 people a day. So we reach out to about 1,500 a month on average, a little more than 1,500 a month, where and it's running every business day to go out, find about 80 new people that fit that target audience, invite them to connect, and over the course of the month, we'll add about 250 or 300 new connections every month.
Let's go back to the slide deck for a second, because I think because I've got some questions about this, and let's head back there and let's see.
All right. Did you get that back, Mary Beth?
No, I think you have to do something.
All right.
Let me see. Oh, I think I got it.
Okay, cool. All right.
Okay, so I am going to flick through here pretty quickly and get to where we need to be.
Sorry.
So that's what we talked about, that sort of the daily routine. Yep. And then the next thing is the introductions. We talked about that. But it's this strategy here. And, so you've got this strategy of being able to, so advisors can do this themselves. And we've got advisors who have followed this since the last time that you and I did this webinar together, which was a couple months ago. And we have advisors that are following this strategy now. But you also help advisors do this, right? So I'm going to put something up on the screen here, but talk a little bit about what you guys do and what's best practice. So you log in for the advisor and do all the heavy lifting for them, and you do the posting, and tell us a little bit about that. Because I think some advisors are interested in, hey, this sounds really great, but I don't know if I want to do it myself. But I think you've given them all the information they need to do it themselves. Yeah. But talk a little bit more about that. Yeah,
and Mary Beth, I wish it was more complicated, but it's not. It's very simple. It's really just, it's so time consuming, right? So, we've got processes and we're set up, and what we do, and you've got 1,000 in there, but we reach out to, between 15 and 1,600 people every month based on, the sales preferences or that target audience for our advisor client. And that could be rollovers, and that could be plan sponsors, or that could be executives or business owners of a certain type. And we invite those 1,500 people every month to connect, and about 250 or 300 of those people will connect. And then we send out, over the following 24 days, we send out 4 messages. And those messages are designed to build a little rapport and familiarity and then just, be pretty direct and ask for a call.
And who writes those messages? You guys write those and get them approved through the advisor's compliance?
You got it. That's exactly right. So we write those because we know what works. The advisor's obviously free to tweak those before they go to compliance. Compliance is going to treat it like a mass email. Compliance will treat it like, if you're sending an email to 9 or more people, they'll treat it like, that type of email. So once that's approved, we're never saying anything off script. But we just go and, essentially set up some calls for advisors. And then with a dedicated account representative, they're checking on the profiles every day and then returning to the advisor, hey, this person is open for a call, set up that meeting.
And how long does it take for it to actually take effect? Because I'm sure it doesn't immediately, people are not getting, 15 calls a month. But how does it work? How long does it take to kind of get up and running?
Yeah, the first month is, the campaign rolls out over about 24, 25 days. So the campaign's about a month long, right? So from day one, once we start, putting those requests out there, the advisor sees activity, people visiting their profile, new people connecting with them. So they see the activity happening. But because the campaign takes a little while to run, the sales calls will come at, there'll be some people that opt in early in the campaign to have that call. You'll get sales calls in the first month, but it'll be the second month where we start to see, a consistency where there's 8, 12, 15, sometimes as many as 20 a month.
Got it. And because of so what you see on the screen here is a way to contact Charlie. And the reason that I put this up here and that I'm having Charlie on this call altogether is because some advisors, really want to do this themselves, and they can, and some other advisors want to have someone else do it for them. We get asked to do this on a regular basis. I refer everybody to Charlie because he and his team focus just on this. They do the heavy lifting of it. And so and I feel strongly that advisors do this. The biggest question that I get is, how can I find new people to talk to? And this is such a fantastic strategy that I've seen work. And I'm going to ask you, before we close up, Charlie, just for, an example of an advisor that you worked with, so you can kind of talk through how it worked for that person, the success that they're seeing, pick an advisor, any advisor. Yeah. But on the right side here, or somewhere on your screen, you're going to see schedule a free consultation, and that goes right to schedule an appointment with Charlie. It goes right to his calendar, and you can just schedule a few minute conversation with Charlie and no cost, and he'll just walk you through. You can tell your personal situation about what you're doing and what you'd like to see happen. What's your target market, and Charlie can help you determine whether this would be a good fit for you. But the cost is $700 a month. Is that right? And that continues for at least 3 to 6 months.
Yeah, we work with advisors in 2 different ways, right? So those advisors who want to learn to do this all for themselves, we've got a 3-month coaching engagement, and that's $500 a month. And then for us to do this for you, it's a 6-month engagement. It's $700 a month. As a result of being on the webinar, we waive any setup fees. So there's a little bit of saving there. And listen, it's highly successful, right? So you saw my messages were open when I first started sharing my screen. All that stuff is from today, right? Doing the same thing. Now I get more activity than our advisor clients get, just by virtue of the different types of business that we do. But we our minimum that we're getting is 8 to 10 calls a month. And last time I looked at the stats was December, and I think it was our best advisor had 22 calls in December, but that was like a 3-week month, with the holidays and stuff. So, Mary Beth, I think the biggest one that I can speak to is we were working with a gentleman out in LA who he was prospecting Domino's. He gave us a list, right? A specific list. He was prospecting Domino's pizza franchisees. There was one that, had $80 million a year plus in revenue, that through this type of activity, we started that conversation on his behalf. It's fun. You ask, how long does it take to work? Well, even in the first month, I've spoken to people, last week, I spoke to a gentleman that we launched probably 3 weeks ago in Kansas City. And he said, Charlie, I've spoken to 3 people already. One was a good-sized business owner. One was a high net worth individual that was shopping. And one was, not all that qualified. He was a guy who was getting educated on investing. But 2 of those 3 were highly qualified. So, everybody's got a different scenario and everybody has a different effectiveness at closing that work. But if starting the conversations is the difficult thing and you can close new business, this is highly effective at doing that.
Excellent. Yeah, I feel so strongly that this is, seminars don't really work that well anymore like they used to. And this is a tool that you can't just get on LinkedIn and put up a nice profile and think this is going to work for you. But the systematic way, the 3 things that Charlie talked about, it's, having 3 conversations a day, right? 3 conversations a day. Asking for 2 introductions every single week, and then your cold prospecting routine, which is, basically reaching out to 10 people a day or 50 people a month, and, resulting in stuff happening and just getting activity, more people looking at your profile. And that's one of the reasons you got to get the profile fixed, because people will get there. They will come there. They will want to see who you are. Who is this person who's communicating with me? And this is not a hard sale kind of a thing. Like, the first message that goes out is, do you want to get together with me for lunch? It's kind of warming into it. And I think that it's an amazing strategy because I've seen it work. I feel strongly about it, which is why I'm doing this webinar with Charlie today. So, yeah, I think that if you've got any additional questions, you can reach out certainly to me at Red Zone Marketing, or you can reach out to Charlie. And again, just hit the free consultation and it'll just bring you to his calendar and you can schedule something that works and just have a conversation about your own situation and see if this is something that might work for you. Otherwise, this webinar, I think, has given a lot of information about the 3 habits that can really help you make LinkedIn successful. So thank you, Charlie, for being on this webinar. I really appreciate it. And hopefully it's provided some value for our listeners.
Yeah, and Mary Beth, thank you for hosting me once again. I appreciate that. And, we're wide open to answer any questions. And education really is part of the mission. So if you do schedule some time with us, I promise you walk away with a little more knowledge about how to use the platform, and no strings attached to that. Of course, we'd love to work with you, but no strings attached. And we hope to hear from you.
Awesome. Well, thank you very much. And I hope that everyone has more LinkedIn success because of this particular webinar. So thank you for joining us.